citizens in the community, and part of our goal is bringing knowledge to help people understand as much as we can in today's world, and give helpful hints on maybe how to have conversations. One of the issues today is, as you're well aware, probably in the last, I don't know, I'm going to say 3 to 4 years, sometimes dialogues have got contentious. And so how do you deal with that? And then I happened to have a conversation with Britt and with my trusty friend here, and found what the high school was doing. And I was so impressed, and they did a presentation in November, and I said to Britt, the community needs to know this. They need to know what you're doing. I don't have grandchildren here, so I really don't have any connection to the schools, and many of you may be in that same boat. So I'm going to turn this over to Britt, and he will talk to you about the presentation that they did in November. So,
thanks, Nancy. So I'm Britt Wolf, I'm the principal at Sockeye Valley High School. I've been here for 11 years now, which doesn't seem possible. So with me, we have a bunch of people. So first, our assistant principal, Tammy Lorenzotti. Liz Sanborn, who's our ELO coordinator. Tom Rhodes and Claire Richmond from the Social Studies Department. And then we have
students up?
3 students. Come on up, guys.
They can't go around. Here we go.
So these guys, we're going to be talking about some of the student-led programs, and these students are involved. There's some interaction and interplay between them, but the civil rights team, you can raise your hand if you're talking about that. That's Margaret Brewster, the Yellow Tulip Project, Cameron Barron, and the Can We Project, Anastasia Harrington Crosby. Did I get them in the right order?
yes.
Okay. So, and I know we definitely want to be done by 4 o'clock. I think we certainly will be, depending on how many questions people have. So, last spring, the program so we're a member school of the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, which accredits all public schools in New England, also private schools and international schools. And they have an annual conference in Boston, and the theme of the 2024 conference, which was November 21st and 22nd, was Cultivating Common Purpose. And I was talking with our staff contact from NEASC about, which he was already aware of this, the work that we've been doing around promoting dialogue and also culture of belonging, which we'll get into what we mean by that. And he really encouraged me to write a proposal to present at the conference. And I'm really, I'm not super good at blowing our own horn, but I should say that only 20% of the proposals that were submitted for that conference got accepted. So I felt very honored to have been, that we were selected to do that. It was a big conference. There were over 500 people there. It was, unfortunately, Liz wasn't able to be with us because she had an incident with her appendix.
My appendix decided it was time to come out, so I unfortunately, what a fun morning. What a fun morning.
So we were able to, we limped across the finish line even without her.
But I'm here today.
So, Tammy, can you do the first round on advancing the slides since we're going low tech?
Yep.
So our agenda, a lot of this, again, we're pretty much doing the same presentation that we did in Boston where they didn't know us from anybody. So we'll talk a little bit about the school, some of our core values and beliefs, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tom and Claire, who are going to talk about the academic side of things and some of the programs that we're doing. And then the school culture stuff is really going to be Liz and the students. So Sockbee Valley High School, which you all know very well, SAD 55 serves the towns of Cornish, Hiram, Baldwin, Porter, and Parsonsfield, here in the foothills of the White Mountains. So we are in terms of how schools are coded for their geographic context, we are considered a rural distant school. Our current high school enrollment is 264. District enrollment is just under 1,000. And in terms of our demographics, we are 95+% non-Hispanic white, and just about 60% of our students receive educational benefits based on income. So this is, as anybody will tell you, I am a huge fan of large vinyl banners. This is a banner that's in our lobby. It's very difficult to see all the words, but our school core values are sort of expressed in something called the Sockbee 6. And those are grouped under core values of respect, responsibility, and honesty. So under respect, be appropriate and courteous, encourage the right to learn and the right to teach at all times. Responsibility, accept responsibility for your actions, be on time for your daily commitments. You were all excellent at that, by the way, today. Honesty, be truthful, ask questions, collaborate, and seek solutions. And then all these other things are just really core parts of our approach to education. So a strengths-based approach, growth mindset, really important to have kids actively engaged, real-world applications to learning, developing habits of mind, community service, effective homeschool partnership. And what we're really here to talk about today is that everybody in the school community feels safe, valued, and respected. And this is a sign, if you've come into the back door of the lobby, this is where most of the students enter the school every day. And this is a sign that one of our staff members made with her Cricut machine. And I just really love this. I feel like it just encapsulates the school. So a year or so ago, I read this book about, I heard about it in an interview with the author on a podcast, and it told the story, the history of the Danish experience during World War II under Nazi occupation. But what was really unique about this story is that the Danes steadfastly refused to give up their Jewish citizens to the Nazis. Pretty famously, King Christian X said, if they told the German ambassador, if you make the Jews wear Star of David, I will wear a Star of David, which means everybody will wear a Star of David. And so this idea that we couldn't do that, these people are Danes, they are us. We are them, they are us. And in our country, it's just the way you are brought up. That's the way you are decent in my country. And this resonated with me because in schools, we try to do the same thing. And if you advance the slide, there's a couple of banners. So in the high school, and I don't know, 3 years ago, we started this sort of awareness the campaign of Hawks Don't Hate. So we're not Danes, we're Hawks. That's our mascot. And so all are welcome here, hate speech and discrimination are not. If you experience or witness bullying or harassment in person or digitally, please notify a staff member or other trusted adult immediately. So it's this idea of developing the idea that everybody belongs here, everybody is part of the community. This is you.
Sure. So one of the things that I do in my role as assistant principal is I work with the students and the behaviors that might happen on a typical day in our building. And one of the things that the state requires us to do is to report these to them. And the way we do that is based on a specific 4-digit code. So in our mind, the maybe most serious code that you can have for a behavior is a 1118, and that is bias-related behaviors based on race, ethnicity, gender identity, and sexual orientation. So this is just a breakdown of where we've been the past 4 years. As you can see, in 21 through 23, the number of events that we had for this code were much higher than we would want to see. Obviously, we would want this to be at 0, but those numbers were high. Last year, we brought it down to about 15 different events throughout the school year, so that's over the 10 months. And then this year, so far through today, we've only had 2 events that we consider to go under this code. This year, one of them involved a staff member and a student who was intimidating to that staff member, and another involved a racial slur. So we feel that the programs that our students are participating in, the building community and climate has significantly improved, as you can see here. This is certainly just one way that we measure this, but I think it's pretty significant that we've dropped down to just 2 events this year. So we're pretty happy with that, and our student leaders and the staff that have participated.
Is there any reason why it went up? Was the first year of recording that you started to record, was that your first year though?
That was the first year, I believe, that the state implemented that code. Is that correct?
And the second year it jumped up. Is that because?
Well, that was, so when I went back through and looked, I wasn't here those 2 years, but when I did go back through and look at the numbers and what they represented, there were a significant number of events that involved masking, and the year that that number was so high was the year that not everybody agreed on whether or not that they should wear a mask. Wear a mask in school, don't wear a mask. And for some students that ignited a pretty severe response. So that certainly doesn't count for all of them, but that was a significant number of the events that year.
Hello, my name is Claire Richmond. I'm one of the social studies teachers at the high school. I teach civics, geography, personal finance, and economics. And I work with a primary group of sophomores and freshmen, and I'm a part of the 9th grade team. When I was asked to do this presentation, I came from it in an interesting perspective because I'm an alumni of the school, probably, and I'm now a teacher here. So I've kind of gotten to see how the policies of SOCOPE have changed over a decade span, which has been fascinating both from the perspective of a past student and as an adult who now has to uphold the policies and everything happening. When I started teaching civics, I realized there was a big gap in students' global education, meaning they have a very narrow mindset. And that's normal for anybody under the age of 15 or 16 years old. Now, social media has done a wild thing introducing a lot of just topics to students from a variety of places, but there's still a lot of misinformation, and it's still going to be pretty biased. So as I was looking through my curriculum, last year was my first year, as I was looking through, I realized I wanted to kind of turn it away from solely focusing on the United States, but how the United States actually sits with every other culture and country in the world, what our relationships are like with different people, how we interact. And so my big goal was contextualization, providing students with tools to connect to others, so giving them vocabulary, context through current events. We spend at least 2 to 3 classes per week watching the news, talking about what's happening in the news, how it relates to other countries, what the United States is doing in global situations. We also work on communication and researching skills because obviously there's a lot of misinformation on the web. And when you're being confronted by a constant stream of information, it's overwhelming. And you might not necessarily know, okay, what's credible, what's going to give you the best information for what you need to build your own opinion. And that's one of my other main goals is I want to start to see students forming their own independent opinion separated from the adults in their space and separated from maybe influencers they interact with. And I added some topics to our geography unit, including world religions. We look at what each religion represents, what are their restrictions, rules, guidelines, what do they worship, who do they worship, how do you live your life within that religion. We talk heavily about the right to bear arms when, because of our demographic here, we have a primary hunting culture, and you can't ignore that and how that conversation happens when we get to the Second Amendment, because I like to turn attention to why is this such a contentious topic, maybe if you jump to Massachusetts versus Maine, because no side is right or wrong, but why do you have a differing opinion? What is your life, what in your life has happened to change your view? We also look at cultural demographics. Like Britt said, we have over 95% white population in this area. How does that differ to maybe a school in Cape Elizabeth? And then we look at political ideology, introducing them to how they sit within the political spectrum in the United States. And a big way we do this, one, providing context, but we start the 7 principles of constructive dialogue in freshman year. And those are presume good intentions, use I statements, understand the speaker's experience is valid for them. These are all pillars of what we want to look at when students start talking to one another. I don't want to hear people saying, well, you're wrong because I think it's wrong. Okay, well, how can you back that up? What information can you find to justify your point? Never speak for somebody else's experience. You have to talk for yourself because that's the only person's life you've lived. Always know that most people aren't intending to commit harm with their words. It's a learned skill to be able to engage in dialogue, and you might make some mistakes. So how do we create a space where mistakes are all right, and then we come back from them? Ask questions to others as individuals. Again, you can't expect anybody to speak for somebody else's experience or as for an experience of a group of people as a whole. Listen to understand, not respond. That's something I've noticed as an adult everybody needs help with, right? You get so caught up in, wait, I know exactly what I want to say to you. I don't like what you said. How do you kind of bring yourself back and say, okay, hold space for what they said, then respond. Recognize that one's intent may differ from one's impact. This one is important, especially when it comes to presuming good intentions. Even if you have great intentions, it's really important, especially in that first couple years of high school, to understand you might not have meant to harm somebody, but it's still okay to hold space for them and understand that their reaction is justified regardless what your intentions were. And seek to raise the bar for yourself and others. If you're not learning throughout the course of your life, what are you doing? Your goal should be to increase your knowledge, to increase your expanse of understanding as you grow. And through the 7 principles of constructive dialogue, I kind of start slow. Because what I noticed in my first year teaching was kids are terrified to talk. Either they're just intimidated by their classmates. You always got the same 3 kids who love to talk, and it's great. But it also makes it really intimidating for shyer students to kind of get up the courage. So something I do, we start with a warm-up every morning, whether it gets a little bit dicey once we get to this point of the year because we're a little busy, but I try to do it every day, where we either start with trivia, would you rather, Google polls, watching the news, discussing it, because it takes the seriousness out of conversations. If it's debating is cereal a soup at 9 a.m., there tends to be a lot less nerves than debating Democrat versus Republican right off the get-go. How do you feel? It just warms it up, and then students have already established the ability to speak in front of their classmates before you get to maybe a more difficult topic. Expect decorum from day one. Even if it's something silly, you gotta hold space for your peers. You have to raise your hands. You're not cutting people off, and that's just something you gotta set from the get-go. Introduce primary and secondary sources. Another thing I noticed from my students, they struggle to interact, especially with primary sources, because it's like reading a different language. The English language has changed so much in the last couple decades. Some of them just don't know how to handle the grammar. So going over how to break down each document, compare it to secondary sources, how do you use one, which is the best time. And then after we get to quarter 2 and beyond, in the later part of quarter 1, discussions become longer. So in the morning, we started in the beginning of the year 5 to 10 minutes. Now you might have a 15 to 20 minute discussion that's built into the lesson. You might be graded on classroom participation, maybe not what you said, but how you conducted yourself. Were you listening? Were you able to respond to a peer in a respectful way? And my students always have to back their opinion up, every time. So even again, if it's something as silly as cereal versus soup, why do you think that? Where did you get that information? So they're going through those steps and they're creating a pattern.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Richmond. My name is Tom Rose. I am part of grade 11, Team 11. I teach U.S. History, AP U.S. History, and Modern World History. And so what we've really been trying to establish here is that kind of the practice that starts with the 7 principles of constructive dialogue begins pretty much in their freshman year. You know, these conversations may be a bit low stakes, at least in the beginning. Which school lunch is better than the other. But ultimately, what the purpose is to get practice with those 7 principles of constructive dialogue. How can we have a conversation? How can we disagree on something and still be able to have the conversation in a calm, civil, and respectful manner? By the time they get up to sophomore year, many of these students end up taking Modern World History. It's kind of a Western Civ kind of course. And ultimately, one of the best things that I think that we do as far as kind of continuing to kind of take off where Ms. Richmond left off is the use of Socratic seminars. And ultimately, what a Socratic seminar is it's a class discussion. Now, I tend to use these at the end of units. My sophomores actually just had their very first one. And that unit was basically covered the voyages of discovery all the way through colonization, the Atlantic slave trade, scientific revolution, the Enlightenment. And what we were doing was kind of looking at the historical and long-term implications of all of the various topics that go into that. What are the long-term implications of colonization or the Atlantic slave trade or of science versus faith? And what are kind of the modern problems and modern conversations that kind of emanate from those, and which we still have in Western civilization and Western society more generally. Now, the thing about a Socratic seminar is it's not a traditional debate. That's really not what this is about. There's no winner, there's no loser. In fact, the teacher doesn't really play a substantial role in moderating these discussions. The role of the teacher is to potentially maybe throw something in there, occasionally, maybe, if the conversation is getting a little out of bounds or sideways, maybe, especially for sophomores, maybe put some guardrails up. Let's get back to the actual crux of the conversation here. But the role of the teacher really isn't to guide discussion. The onus is kind of put on the students to direct that conversation themselves and to continue kind of passing the ball back and forth and keep the conversation going while still adhering to those 7 principles. And so ultimately, the big thing is that, again, we're not trying to win a debate. We're trying to listen to understand different perspectives, diverse perspectives, and have a more, hopefully at the end, kind of have a more global, well-rounded perspective on the issues that we talk about as a whole. So again, these are undertaken based on the 7 principles and the classroom norms that we have established, both as a class and our classroom culture. Again, that's kind of the big thing. We want to maintain a decorum, certainly. We want to maintain a high level of respect for ideas and different perspectives. And again, the big thing is that we're trying to listen to understand and not just to respond. That's the big thing. So again, typical class discussions, the teacher might be kind of, moderating or guiding these. the whole kind of point of a Socratic is for the teacher mostly to, as far as my responsibility, it's gauging their understanding and mastery and comfort with those principles, and also trying to make sure that they understand and demonstrate what we've learned over the actual unit. So more of a facilitator than a moderator, which can be admittedly one of the more difficult things, kind of giving up that power and control. But ultimately, I've always been very impressed with how my students have been able to keep that ball rolling. Yep. And so ultimately, at the beginning of every Socratic seminar, my students will be given a product descriptor that kind of outlines the context for everything that we've covered. This is an example, probably a little bit tough to see, but it just kind of talks about, a lot of the various issues and topics that we covered in class. So like I was talking about earlier, my guys just finished up their very first Socratic. We talked about, the voyages of discovery. We talked about Columbus. We talked about colonization, motivations for colonization, the short and long-term impacts on 3 different continents for colonization, and then the Atlantic slave trade. And then we talked about the kind of changing dynamics between faith and science with the scientific revolution. We talked about the Enlightenment and the development of revolutionary ideas, ultimately leading to the American Revolution, and now we're talking about the French Revolution. And so context just kind of establishes that, what students can kind of expect to be talking about. And ultimately, students will be conducting research on various discussion questions. Typically, what these questions entail is kind of a historical context component, but then again, we always kind of tie it into modern issues as well. And so if it's a question on, say, the voyages of discovery with Christopher Columbus, perhaps we'll tie something in there at the end. We'll talk about, should we celebrate Columbus Day? What is the purpose of celebrating Columbus Day? Was it a Western achievement? Or should we celebrate something else, like Indigenous Peoples Day? What are the merits, what are the pros and cons of celebrating one versus the other? What should we be honoring? Right? And so this just basically kind of sets up those kind of discussion questions. Okay, kind of already jumped forward a little bit there. Again, students are given a variety of these questions. On that particular Socratic, we had 6 questions. There's usually multiple questions within one, so students are going to be utilizing primary and secondary sources. What I really want them to do is not only get the historical context, so we can kind of get that out of the way, but I want them to look at a wide variety of different perspectives. So if, for instance, we had one student, we'll say Cameron, huge proponent or huge supporter of Columbus Day, right? Very, hardcore, set in their ways, hardcore opinion on, it should be Columbus Day. I don't want you just looking up perspectives that support your beliefs. I want you looking also at arguments that support Indigenous Peoples Day as well, so that you come into the actual discussion with already an idea of what the various arguments are for and against your position. So again, that's a big part of grading, which I'll touch on again in a moment. But again, I want students to really have a wide array, a broad understanding of these ideas and of different perspectives, even those, especially those that are different from their own. Okay. So the way that I assess this, we have 50%. Basically, 50% of your grade is the quality of your notes. Okay. Do you have a variety of sources? Okay. And I'll be checking those sources. Right? Do you have a variety of sources that go against your position? Right? Again, I want you to have that broad-based perspective going into the Socratic seminar, so that you can not only have gain a wider perspective, but also kind of anticipate a lot of the arguments that will be challenging your own position. How much, what is the depth and quality of your notes? Do you just have a couple of things here and there, or do you really have a nuanced understanding of the material? Because we're really going for the latter. Again, research is probably, and preparedness, probably the most important thing going into the discussion. And then the other 50%, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I can go back.
The other 50% is participation in the actual Socratic seminar. And so, there is typically a range to that. There are various ways that you can gain points, like referencing a fact or an opinion from your research, or advancing your own, respectfully utilizing and demonstrating your comfort with the 7 principles of constructive dialogue and civil discourse. Critiquing an argument from a classmate, again, using those principles. There are various ways. And there are also ways to lose points, like ad hominem attacks, right? Or kind of just categorizing people with a broad brush. You Republicans are all the same. You Democrats are all the same, right? So that's not what we're wanting to do. Again, it's about taking the principles that they should have a fairly high degree of comfort with from their freshman year. We're building on that, and then we're putting it into practice starting in their sophomore year.
Okay. Claire, are you okay with, you and Tammy can both talk about bar.
All right, so something we're starting to roll out, I believe, school-wide, at least through freshman and sophomore, correct me if I'm wrong, is something called BAR. So it's building assets, reducing risks. And as a 9th grade teacher, what we do is we meet at least twice a week. We have a spreadsheet of all of our students, and we see every single grade for every class on a grid. So we're able to track students' productivity, how well they're doing, then we connect it back. Okay, something happening outside of school is something happening inside of school, so we can assess what's happening with each individual student. Right now, we're very lucky. My freshman class is about 47 students in total, which means we have such a small sample size that we're able to talk in depth about every single student in about an hour. By going, okay, what is the student's strengths? What are their weaknesses? How can we be there for that student to make them successful?
Yeah, and so the 10th grade has implemented that this year. The 9th grade team has been doing this, I want to say, for maybe 8 years. And our meeting fidelity, basically, so the BAR program sends somebody out every year to go to sit with them and see what they're doing. The 9th grade team is really an exemplar, a shining exemplar of how to do it. I sit in, Mr. Wolf sits in on some of the community connection meetings that they have. They do touch, for lack of a better term, every single student. So there is not one student that does not get looked at least once a week. And as she said, it's the whole student. So are they having behavior referrals? Where are their grades? How are they at class? Are they staying after school for homework club? So this is, the 9th grade team does this well. The 10th grade team, this is their first year. They have great role models. Janet Harriman is the leader of the 9th grade team. She's helping the 10th grade team. So the 10th grade team has implemented this. Our goal ultimately would be to obviously have every grade level doing this. But I will say that one aspect of this, the Community Connect, or we also refer to it as risk review, and I just realized I could be stealing your next slide, but
This is all, yeah.
we do that piece of it, the risk review, in every grade level. So every grade level does have the spreadsheet that Claire is talking about. Sue Day and the tech department get the grades uploaded every Monday morning. So every grade level team has the opportunity to look at all of their students, and they look at them as a team, and again, follow the same pattern that the 9th and 10th graders are. They're just not an official part of the bar program yet.
And the only thing this becomes more difficult for 11th and 12th graders because their pathways start to diverge, right? 9th graders have a pretty uniform program. 11th and 12th graders are going to the vocational school, or they have internships, or they're doing an ELO program. They're kind of all over the place, and their schedules are all over the place as well. So it gets a bit more challenging doing whole group activities and things, but this works is a really good fit with 9th and 10th grade. And as Tammy said, we do risk review. We meet every week, and we meet on a different class every week. So we're talking about 9th graders, for example, once a month. Okay, Civil Rights Team Project.
You guys can come stand up.
All of us.
Why not? All right, so I'm Elizabeth Sanborn. I'm the Extended Learning Opportunities Coordinator. We call that ELO at the high school. So I've been around for a while, taught English up at the high school. I've taught here, gifted and talented, and now this program is in its third year, and it's career exploration, internships, things like that. But what I'm here to talk to you today is not about that. Actually, is my involvement in 3 different student groups as an advisor. And so these are basically ways that I am helping to create a positive and welcoming school climate beyond just academic learning. And I have brought some helpers today. As much as I'd love to stand here and talk to you, because it's like my favorite thing, I do have to share the spotlight. So I may jump in if they, maybe left something out or something I think of. But the first one we're going to talk about today is the Maine Civil Rights Team Project. And we have Margaret Brewster here to talk about it.
I was going to introduce myself, but I guess I'll do it again.
Sorry. Hi.
My name is Margaret Brewster, and I've been part of our school's civil rights team since the end of my freshman year, beginning of my sophomore year.
And she's a senior this year.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay. And with the civil rights team, we meet once a week during advisory, typically on Wednesdays, sometimes another day if a lot of us are really busy. And our main goal is just to talk about issues within our school and find solutions. And with us, the program is through the Maine Attorney General. It was piloted in 18 schools in 1996. Approximately 150 Maine elementary, middle, and high schools have active teams. And then the Student Civil Rights Team engage school communities in thinking and talking about issues related to race and skin color, national origin and ancestry, religion, disabilities, gender, including gender identity and expression, and sexual orientation.
To add something to that, our mission is really to increase safety of students by reducing bias-motivated behaviors, harassment, and language in schools. So we do a lot of different things based on that, which we will talk about. But the idea that school should be a place where everyone feels welcome and safe and like they belong.
Cool. One of the main things that we do in early November each year is called the Day of Welcome. And we do it in the morning in the lobby before school starts. We get there early, we set out a table, we make stickers each year. Everyone can get a selection of stickers. We usually have snacks, baked goods, munchkins, apple cider. We had hot chocolate one year. Didn't really work.
It's all free, so
Yeah.
we welcome kids to school and give them free food. Who doesn't love that?
We have a speaker. We play some really nice music in the mornings. This year, courtesy of Mr. Wolf, we all got pumpkins that we got to paint.
And what did we learn about what happens to pumpkins when you paint them with latex paint?
So we have learned
explode, just so you...
they explode.
After a few days.
The only one that did not explode was the orange one because we did not paint that one. we just wiped it off. So, and for the Day Welcome this year, we also had coloring sheets, and then I made a couple crossword puzzles and word searches of words of inclusion, which I found actually a lot of them around the school. So people did take them. We also have, this is our new banner that Miss Sanborn was really trying to get, and she did get it. And it is in the middle stairway. And This was drawn by a student, correct? Yes.
Natalie
This was
Tufts
drawn by
on our
Natalie
students.
Tufts
It's a digital art.
a couple of years ago. And we had been trying to get it up on a poster. You just want me to, okay. She wants me to talk about this.
We like to do art installations.
So this is an art installation that I actually made my sophomore year. And it is a couple of the words that we think represent our school, which include caring, empathy, kindness, open mind, equality, inclusion, Hawk Nation, and respect. It took a while, but I'm very happy with how it turned out, and it's hanging up in the lobby right when you walk in. For each month, we make new posters, locker notes, we have announcements on the news. I'm getting there, calm down. That's my board. We do posters. We sometimes go and we put little words of affirmation on each locker so people can see them when they walk through. Sometimes they're silly quotes that a teacher has said that have made us all laugh. And then this is also one of our posters. We have so many posters, one for each day that we celebrate, one that we celebrate for each month that we put up around the school, and they're mostly all student made. We have a bulletin board that is right outside the cafeteria that each month we go and we decorate it for whatever we're celebrating that month. This month it is Martin Luther King Jr. month on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is...
There isn't really a month for January. We've also got Black History Month, Women's History Month, Autism Acceptance Month, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Pride Month, National Hispanic Heritage Month, and on and on. So we try to really, make sure that we are being inclusive of all major world holidays and our themed months to really get kids to thinking about it, seeing it, hearing it on the announcements, and making them more aware.
Oh, it is, okay.
Do you want me to talk about this one, or you want to do the beginning?
I can talk about it. We talked about this a lot, but it's we think that the main issue in our school is bias-based language. And it's the most common civil rights issue in schools. This type of language makes students feel unwelcome, and it connected with a culture of bias, added weight of history, and prejudice. Sorry, speaking. I'm gonna let her talk about the rest.
Yeah, so Mrs. Lorenzai talked a little bit about it, but we do have school policies and state and federal laws that support our work. One being that 4-digit state reporting code of 1118, which is what we use to track bias-related incidents and harassment. Students also take the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey, which we call the MIAS. They're taking it actually at the end of February 27th. We have a special schedule that day so kids can take it. And we collect data from that consistently shows students of different identities have different school experiences. Not everyone experiences school the same way. And that's something that we work to change. The Civil Rights team at the state level expects us to talk about these issues and have conversations with kids and respond to incidents of bias. And, we're not the civil rights police, if you will. We've got wonderful administrators who help deal with that. But just sometimes I will be asked to be, pulled into a conversation with a student or, things like that, so that we're making sure that these issues are not swept under the rug and they are talked about and people do see themselves reflected, by a spirit of inclusion within our school. Thank you, Margaret.
Can I ask a question first?
Yes, of course.
Margaret, what drew you to the civil rights team in 9th grade?
Ooh. I think it honestly started with a lot of my friends my 9th grade year, I didn't really want to join a lot of clubs. Don't really know why, but I really just wanted to go to school and go home. But a lot of my friends started joining a lot of different clubs, which made me kind of branch out and join a lot of clubs. And right now I'm part of a lot of clubs. And civil rights have been something that I'd always kind of been passionate about, and especially the beginning of my sophomore year when Miss Sanborn came up. I think one of the first things she said to me in the civil rights meeting was asking me to make a poster. I love making posters. Digital, on paper, I love making posters. And that, I think, is kind of what kept me there for sophomore year. And then I just fell in love with it.
Thank you.
So next up is the Yellow Tulip Project. Some of these students, like Margaret, are involved in more than one of these activities, but we're each going to do it separately. So would you like me to introduce you?
think I got it.
All right.
So my name is Cameron Barron. I'm also a senior. I've been involved with the Yellow Tulip Project technically in my high school career since freshman year, but it spans far before that, which I'll talk about. So the Yellow Tulip Project, for those of you who don't know, it's a youth-driven organization focused on mental health. It was founded in 2016 by a Maine student, I think she attended Waynflete High School, Julia Hansen. And her mother also co-founded it and was on, I think she was the co-director until last year. It was brought to our district in 2019 by a then 7th grader, now 12th grader, that's me. And so the mission of the project is to eradicate stigma, build community, and inspire productive conversations about mental health. And so, as is stated on the board, I was in 7th grade, 6th grade the first time I broached the conversation with Mrs. Sanborn. 7th grade when we really got started. I had a lot of struggles throughout my life with mental health, but I didn't really understand it because there weren't a lot of resources available to me. And so when it was brought to me by my sister, actually, who knew personally Julia Hansen, I immediately was drawn to it. And I knew that it was something that I wanted. I knew that it was something that I felt like our district was kind of lacking, but that they would definitely be open to. So I brought it to Mrs. Sanborn, and we immediately got started.
Before we move on from this, both Liz and Cameron were featured in an article that was published in the New York Times last year. I don't remember the date, but it was a major feature article.
I got lots of emails from around the country.
We were the cover, no big deal.
I mean, like, a photographer came to my classroom and took
Yeah,
pictures of
whatever.
us. We're pretty much models, it's fine. I think we're ready for the next one.
So the vision, this is specific to our tulip team. That's kind of what we've labeled ourselves as Saukville Valley. We thought up that name in middle school, and it's sort of just followed us since as we've fluctuated.
It's still here.
It is still here, it'll always be here. So the tulip team at Saukville Valley strives to create a healthy school environment that recognizes the importance of emotional and mental wellness and is built on a foundation of advocacy, education, and awareness. And then our mission is to build a community with the common goal of smashing the stigma surrounding mental health and helping anyone who is struggling to feel less alone. In order to do this, and for young people to be able to access help, we need to start talking about mental health, which is really what we've done. That's kind of been the driving goal and mission of everything that we've done. We have countless activities and events, which are probably featured on one of the next slides. But a lot of what we've done has really been rooted in just talking, having conversations with kids, making it more comfortable, trying to destigmatize it as much as possible, add some normalcy, because, and Claire kind of touched on this as well, Ms. Richmond, it can be hard to have serious conversations, especially teenagers. We're uncomfortable already about a lot of things, so it's kind of an added layer of stress, but just by facilitating those conversations and making it very evident that it is a comfortable and safe space to share if you want to has done a lot for us.
And to add to that, I've always said that, you know, if my leg was broken and my bone was hanging out, I wouldn't say to you, oh, I'm fine, really, I don't need the doctor, I'm fine. But sometimes with mental health, we don't always get the help we need. We say, oh, it's fine, I'm fine, I can deal with it on my own. So really, for a lot of us, it's about, you know, something maybe that happened in our own life or just our own importance of what we think mental health is. And then noticing it, at least for me, with my students, knowing that they need support, and since COVID, and just knowing that, like, it's okay to not be okay. And there's people here that care. And maybe I'm not a counselor and I can't help you, but I can connect you with that person that can help you. So as Cameron said, it's really about advocacy and, you know, making these conversations not uncomfortable. And again, like I said, it's okay to ask for help. You would if you had a broken bone.
So yeah, and actually, a lot of that sentiment specifically, being able to ask for help and being okay with not being okay, knowing that that's something that's allowed, and it's actually encouraged that you talk about it if you feel that way, that has also driven pretty much the host of our activities. There's an insane amount of things we've done that wouldn't even fit on here. These are some of our biggest. So we've planted Hope Gardens, and I'll detail these a little bit after I list them all. We've had Hope Celebrations, Youth Wellness Day, Bathroom Helplines, school-wide Hope Board, and then we've had Wisdom Wednesday and Find Out Friday, which are announcements, and then Yellow Ribbons for All, which sounds very funny when it's written that way.
I know, but like little yellow ribbons, you know.
Painstakingly crafted by hand, just for everyone in the building.
Yep.
So our Hope Garden, which a lot of these photos are from the initial planting of our Hope Garden, this was this year?
This was this
Last
past
year.
October. So this is some of the members of the Tulip team. Of course, we have yellow t-shirts.
Right.
And then students, we had every single student and staff member come out and plant at least one bulb in our front garden. So that's very important to me, that everyone feels they had a hand, literally, in creating this.
And they definitely did, and that's something that we've done since middle school. When Ms. Sanborn and I first discussed the idea of the Yellow Tulip Project, we both agreed that it was something that we really had to do, and we both kind of felt a calling towards it. And we gathered a group of people. Margaret was one of the founding members as well. We were very small, looked a little different back then. And we presented to the school board, and we had just unconditional support. And actually, it was Diane Day, I believe, immediately offered a very generous donation to fund our very first Hope Garden.
So we have no money. We don't have a budget.
Yeah, we didn't have
We
a
just wanted
budget.
to
We
do
were
it.
nothing. So
We still don't have a budget,
it
but
was
it's okay.
that kind of helped us become something, and we've done it every single year since. We've also planted tulip bulbs at the health center, and essentially our tulip team, we go out the day of or the day before, and one by one we dig these holes to make it as easy as possible for students and staff. And then when they come to us throughout the day, we tell them which way the tulip bulb should plant. Sometimes they don't listen. That's okay. And we get to kind of watch them bloom, which is awesome. And then
And so the idea behind that is you plant something with the hope, over the cold, dark winter, that there will be beautiful yellow flowers. And there are. Every year, the first year we did this was 2019, and of course it was COVID in the spring, and so we had a virtual, celebration, and everyone sent in videos, and it's probably still on YouTube somewhere, but just the idea that that's sort of like our symbol is that yellow tulip.
yeah, and those hope celebrations that we kind of briefly mentioned, those are exactly what they sound like. It's where we celebrate hope and the blooming of the flowers that took so long to plant, and that we actually didn't have to really care for because they kind of do it all themselves, but it's besides the point. And that one specifically, we had a hope celebration our 8th grade year, and some people were at school, some people were at home. There was still a lot of fear, rightfully so. A lot of people had lost family members. It was really difficult, which we felt it was of the utmost important that we make sure that this happens because of those circumstances. And we held it virtually, and actually a lot of us came into school on a Friday when we weren't required to at that time to facilitate this, and we had people sing, we had people write,
Make art.
which has been a theme through a lot of these groups. I wonder if it's because of Ms. Sanborn or not. So that's been major, and that's another thing that we've done annually. And then the Youth Wellness Day, that was our session breakout day.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. We worked with the district wellness team. Help me if I'm saying this
We had a
incorrectly.
planning meeting for this year's
Yes.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an event 2 years ago, and it's going to happen again, thankfully.
April 11th.
April 11th.
April 11th.
Perfect, look at that. And that was a day essentially dedicated to the wellness of our student body. There was an assembly, we had speakers, and then we had different rooms designated to different events. So the Yellow Tulip Project in Ms. Sanborn's room, we were talking about social media. It's right here. Oh, that is from that day.
That is
Look
from
at
that day.
And we were kind of crafting. It was supposed to be a day for students to really decompress and learn more about their options, and it was really about spreading awareness. That's a lot of what we do.
And we did that year about how social media affects your mental health.
Yeah, specific. Good thing to connect the two, probably. And then the bathroom helplines is also something, we've done that since middle school, posted crisis helplines. We've posted some pretty ambiguous ones, some general ones, and then some like gender identity focused ones, some trans identity focused ones. In every bathroom, we had we had a couple of our guys on the team go into the male bathrooms to be able to do it. So every single bathroom and staff bathrooms have helplines in them, which is wonderful and such a great resource. And we still do that. We'll continue to do that. I'll make sure of it after we leave that somebody else keeps going. And then our school-wide hope board, that's our taffy. That's also something we've done since middle school. Typically, it's myself and another of our members, Emma Sanborn. She was also a founding member. Every single year, out of construction paper, we have outlined, cut out, and pasted up our taffy. And those little dots that you see, those are full of words from our students. Usually it's advisories that this occurs. So yellow stickers are handed out to all of the students, and they're instructed to write something that they're hopeful for, that makes them feel hopeful, not thankful. It gets confused because it's usually around Thanksgiving time. And then all of those ideas we take and we post them up for everybody to look at. it's a really great outlet for kids who maybe aren't as comfortable physically vocalizing their feelings about things. And also just to be able to, even if you didn't contribute, to look at that board and see something that resonates with you can be really empowering for a lot of kids, has been for me. That's something that we've done for a long time and that I think we'll continue to uphold. It's been extremely successful and wonderful to see, really unifying activity. And then the Wisdom Wednesdays and Find Out Fridays, also we've done since middle school. Consistency is key, guys. And those have been morning announcements. We also used to play music. We did
I
music
know.
Mondays.
We're very bad at remembering
It's
music
hard.
Monday.
It's hard.
Because Monday mornings are usually a little chaotic.
There are a lot.
But we'd always, down at the middle school, we always used to start the week with a song, an uplifting, fun song that everyone would end up dancing in the hallways. And I'll admit, I'm very bad at remembering on Monday mornings, and it's like 8:05, and I'm like,
I
we
mean,
missed it
Cameron
again.
and I are not at school Monday morning.
And you're not
Yeah,
at
it's a
school
little
anymore.
difficult, but those two
But
we
just
have
fun
kept.
little things to
It
make
happens.
kids. Yeah.
Something to uplift people. Sometimes the Find Out Fridays can be a little bit of a downcast. A lot of the time they're sort of concerning statistics, but it's so important that we hear those because they are why this organization exists. And they can be really informative for kids who still might not understand who we are, what we do, where we are in the school, and the resource that is available to them. We really just want to outreach and ensure that everybody is aware of the help that they can access if they need it. And then we kind of already talked about the Yellow Ribbons for All, but all of these have really just been rooted in unifying the school and making sure that nobody feels that they don't have a place to talk about what they're experiencing and that they're aware that other people are definitely experiencing it too. Everything.
Excellent. And last but not least, this is the Can We project. This is something new, but we have a wonderful student to talk about.
Hi, I'm Anastasia Harrington Crosby. I'm a 10th grader at high school. The Can We project was started in 2018 by the Wayne Fleet School in Portland. They kind of made it so that it would help develop the
Speak up. Speak to the back of the room.
It helps like develop the high school students' ability to engage in dialogue across differences via like going out and talking to people or like talking to people in your school. It consists of 3 retreats during the entire school year, so it's spread out I think a couple months in between each other.
We do one in the fall.
One in the fall, one in the winter, and then one in the spring. And it's 19 schools that are involved. And it started in Socopee in 2023. And we do have new kids this year, I think. A lot of kids that started last year, we had seniors and mostly freshmen last year, which I was part of it. I started my freshman year. And then,
Oh, you have the reason why?
yeah. So this is our second year, Socopee's second year in it. And the essential question of Can We that we kind of always look at whenever we do a retreat is, can we harness the wisdom, compassion, and power inherent in the great diversity of American people to vitalize our democracy, mend the social fabric, and live out the true meaning of the American promise of liberty and justice for all?
So that's where the words Can We project comes from that actual question.
Want me to go ahead?
So our group, this was our group from 2024. We went to our retreat. So every year we do our second retreat is in Augusta at the Civic Center, and we do it during December. And so this was our group. Margaret and Cameron are in it.
And William.
And Will. And so they always have a map that's just a map of Maine, and then it stars the schools that's a part of Can We. And so that when we do breakout sessions where we go and talk to smaller groups than having a giant group of like 200 and something kids, which is kind of hard to be able to talk and hear yourself and the person next to you. So they have a Sharpie that's attached to the board, and you are able to connect your school to whatever school the person you made a connection with. Kids, the students and the adults that were there were able to do it if they wanted to, and if they made that connection and remembered who they knew what school they were from.
So as you can see, lots of connections are made. I love that picture.
So something that we learned when we were at the Can We project is the 3 C's, which is approach the conversation with curiosity, treat others with care, and summon courage as you work on your own growth edge, which I feel like is a great thing when it comes to us teenagers, because we never know how to really go into a conversation and be okay with the 3 C's. So the Can We project was featured on Channel 6 News. It aired the day after our second retreat. And actually a few of our students were showed in it.
If you look closely, you may see some of these students.
I hid from the camera.
Just one.
I don't know how I did it.
You should be able to click it and play it.
Today, hundreds of teenagers from around the state were in Augusta to do something many adults have a hard time doing, finding common ground. It's part of an effort called Can We Project, as in can we find something that we can agree on? As News Center Maine's Leanne Stapleton found out today, the project's goal is to help students learn how to have these conversations in a respectful, constructive way.
Day for students to come together across schools and to learn about each other and learn what each other is thinking.
Agree to disagree. That's what brought close to 250 high schoolers from 14 schools around Maine to Augusta for the Can We Connect conference.
It just helps build that network and across the divide. We like to think that we're helping to bring the two Maines together that we always talk about and find a place that we can really just be one Maine.
John Holdridge is the director of the Can We project. He says the students who came here aren't required to, they choose to sign up.
And the number one reason that they express that they want to be involved is they want to be in a place where they can listen to what their peers are thinking. They want to be in a space that can be non-judgmental.
Jacob Posick is a lead facilitator. He says he wants students to understand the differences among their peers.
I think people are just so averse to conflict that very rarely do you intentionally engage in it, you know what I mean? So we like to say constructive conflict is good.
The day featured 2 breakout sessions, one centered on understanding people from different Maine communities. The second, students talked about issues important to them, and it's the students themselves who take the lead in those conversations.
We like to read what we're doing for
Teaching these young people these skills now, and they're practicing them, and they take them to college, or they take them to the professional world, whatever their next step is. That's how we improve our communities on the whole.
The big takeaway for organizers, having different viewpoints is okay.
There are students who have called our work the Anti-Debate League, which I really like, because this isn't about proving that I'm right and you're wrong.
And taking a moment to understand those differences.
School students are just steps away from becoming the leaders of the future. We all know what's going on in the national scene with regards to partisan divide that is getting wider and wider and wider.
And learning how to make that divide a little smaller is what gatherings like this is all about. In Augusta, Leanne Stapleton, News Center, Maine.
The Can We Project's next session will go to the partner schools, where students will have the opportunity to discuss bills currently going through the legislature. If you'd like to learn more about the project, you can visit our website or app.
And so our next, what's that? Yeah, and so our next retreat will be, I haven't set a date yet, we're still trying to find a spot, but we're going to meet with Poland High School. So we're going to take our students and work with Poland's group. We're trying to find a place in Naples that we can meet at. Hopefully, I've been on the phone with the town, and we're trying. They charge to use their space, and I'm like, but where's school? So that's about halfway, so that neither school has to travel a full hour. But what's kind of neat is the pairing up so that kids can also connect with other kids in the state. That's been a really great part of this program as well.
So that's what I wanted to add on to is when
Sorry
our,
about that.
well, no, not going to say that, but when we do our 3 retreats, so last year we had the first retreat we do at our home school, so they come to us at Saucony.
John Holdridge and Jacob Posick, who were in the video, run the sessions.
And then our second retreat is always in Augusta at the Civic Center, and that's with all the other schools joining. And then our third retreat, which this year is different than last year, because last year we also came back to just doing it at our home school, but this year we're hoping to connect with all.
Yeah.
So around the state, we're in Augusta.
Not
So to
again.
do something many adults have a hard time.
More technology. Do the little arrows.
Yeah,
the arrow.
There's an arrow right down here.
There you go.
There we go. All right.
So to finish up, something we're working on, this is something we've identified as an area for growth, is really making our teaching of digital citizenship more robust through the grade levels. So we're working with our district librarian, Mrs. Goodfield, about how do we spread this out across the curriculum so it touches everybody. But we do use the Common Sense Media program as a district, and that's an official thing. But it's just having the time and allocating the time really in different courses to learn about balance and privacy and digital footprint and knowing the power of words and actions, being kind and courageous, and being just basically a wise media consumer. So this is sort of a new area that we're really working to grow in. And that is what we have. It went a little bit longer than we were planning on, but that's okay. But if we have a few questions, I'm happy to take them. Cliff had his hand up first.
Thanks, Brett.